Hello and welcome to the Premier Injuries channel, everybody. We are getting so close to deadline now. I'm so excited. It's finally here. The Premier League season is about to begin. And as always, the best way to deal with the season is to make sure you don't have any injury problems in your squad. So Ben, you've had such a busy last couple of days, really, in fact. Any kind of breaking injury news that people really need to be aware of?
We haven't had any massive updates as such. Lots of talking points, of course. That stems to the one that springs to mind initially is the Leicester City goalkeeper situation and the Ward and the Iverson coin toss. My initial thoughts earlier in the week, I was sort of leaning towards Iverson. Danny Ward has just come back off a long-term knee problem. He's been out for almost 2 months, picked that up, I think it was with Wales. Had his first behind closed doors game on Monday. We didn't really know how that went, but we have heard from Brendan Rodgers today. Now, he said that went really well. And following another week of training under his belt, I just think that puts him in pole position. Brendan Rodgers has already come out and he said Danny Ward is his number one goalkeeper for the upcoming season. So like I say, if it was an outfield player, then there would be no question or no doubt in my mind he would not be ready for that starting 11. But Brendan Rodgers, particularly, unsurprisingly very coy on, wait until Sunday, you will find out. I think it's going to be Ward. I really do. Elsewhere in that Leicester camp, a couple of big updates. One of those being Ricardo Pereira. That's a ruptured Achilles tendon. He's already had surgery on that. That's going to keep him out for the best part of 6, possibly even 7 months. And also Harvey Barnes. That was a precautionary withdrawal last weekend, a knee problem against Seville. Post-match, it was played down, and Brendan Rodgers almost allayed fears of anything sort of serious. But my concerns and my worries at the time were Harvey Barnes said that his knee still felt a little bit unstable. And I'm sure it's transpired that we're going to have at least 2 weeks out for the winger.
And I want to bring it on to, a couple of other talking points. First one being, I guess I sent you a meme the other day about it, but the kind of fullback situation at Tottenham, something that we've talked about all summer, and people have kind of come into this game week going, oh, my team plans have been ruined because now Perisic looks unlikely. But this was always the story. I mean, we can't confirm or deny if he is or isn't going to play, but it looks unlikely, doesn't it, Ben?
Look, we're not here to give any definitive answers, first and foremost. What we do is we offer a rationale, a thinking, a consideration, and that's certainly for Matt Doherty and Ivan Perisic, two players that have struggled with serious injuries throughout the summer and have had limited game time. So that's fact. And we know that Antonio Conte likes his players in tip-top condition to go out there. And he's already come out and he said he won't be prepared to take any risks. Now, fatigue is a massive red flag when it comes to players being out there. And let's forget about these non-competitive, behind closed doors friendly. Nothing compares to the intensity of the Premier League, first and foremost. So, yes, when I suggested that, Ryan Sessegnon could possibly start at the weekend, everybody was talking about, Perisic has come out and he's played those minutes and this, that, and the other. Yes, he has. And I know he has. But is he in a position? Is he Antonio Conte fit? And does he feel happy and confident enough to start him in that game? He may not. They can only go one or two ways. Either start him and bring him off in and around maybe that 55 to 65 minute mark, or he'll introduce him from the bench for a 20 to 30 minute cameo. And that depends, and that's determined by, one, how he's trained this week, and two, how much Antonio Conte feels he's got in his legs. And for me, there was enough of doubt for me to question whether Perisic would start, and therefore, and we've discussed it, I'm staying away from both Tottenham fullbacks for those opening game weeks. I want the eye test. I want to see what Conte goes with. And then, maybe once those players are settled and back up to full speed, we can jump on them at that point.
So now we've got a listener question. It's from Wylad. He's asked, Mount or Maddison? So I guess from your perspective, Ben, do you want to answer first in terms of maybe injuries and also your thoughts and feelings on the two players?
Um, I just see the outgoings at Leicester, and maybe it's that little bit of disruption within the squad and with injuries and so on and so forth. I'm not convinced with Leicester heading into this season. I think they've been heavily reliant on certain players. Um, Jamie Vardy for one, and I think they've prepared all pre-season with Ricardo Pereira. Now his injury may change that setup from Brendan Rodgers. Um, I was as well, I wasn't necessarily keen on Chelsea either, but a couple of signings, Cucurella today, I think that's lifted the club. There's going to be a little bit of everybody's going to be buzzing in and around, Chelsea. So for me, I would think probably Mount is the one I'd go for. Whether the speculation with Maddison was real and has unsettled him, or maybe it was just something that was generated by his agent, because I understand that that deal in Newcastle isn't on as it currently stands, and James Maddison is a strong position to sign a contract extension at the club.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you over the kind of Mount and James Maddison situation. Looking at the clubs, Chelsea are a lot better club than Leicester. Looking at the data of Leicester last season, they were really, really lucky to not be much lower down the table. They massively overperformed in defensive metrics, and they were still really, really, really bad at the back. And then going forward, just quite often they look lethargic. As you said, around the club, there's a lot of problems. Whereas Chelsea, even with kind of a bit of an overhaul going on, with a few of the problems striking, whatever, Mason Mount generally stays quite good. And then also, if you look at their underlying data, Mason Mount has the higher kind of data as well, higher non-penalty XG plus XA per 90. You look at all that sort of stuff. I just think that Chelsea are going to be a top 4 team, whereas James Maddison's going to be in a Leicester team. We don't even know whereabouts they're going to be. But let's continue. We don't have more listener questions at the moment, but people do keep sending them in if you have them. So yeah, Ben, is there any other kind of injuries that you think are worth highlighting?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the latest team sheet there, because it's been a long, long day. Everything's blown into one. And there had been, we'll stick with Chelsea. There's been a lot of talk about Matija Kovacic wasn't involved in that last preseason friendly. There had been no mention of an injury from Thomas Tuchel. He has been seen on the training pitches, so it looks like he's fitting well and certainly in contention. Armando Broja was also seen on the training pitches. Of course, he returned from the club's US tour with an ankle stroke Achilles problem that he picked up in training as well. But whether he's actually a real sort of viable option for Chelsea remains to be seen. He has been linked with 7 clubs, several, not 7, including me own, for a possible loan move away. So maybe that would be a coup for Newcastle to get their hands on him. Where else do we? Manchester United. There's a lot of being talked, obviously, Anthony Martial. Now, he tweaked his hamstring against Atletico last weekend. Now, we had news on Thursday that was going to keep him out, certainly of game week 1, hopefully going to return in game week 2, but there are no guarantees. Or Ten Hag played that down and said, look, we'll remain, we'll wait to be seen. He's being monitored. Elsewhere within that United camp, Jaden Sancho, again, he's a player who's had a half-decent pre-season, attracting a lot of interest. He missed out because of illness last weekend. There's been no reports or updates from the club. He hadn't been seen on the training ground earlier this week, but fingers crossed he looks good and he will be included in that. Luke Shaw has been past fit, but he is vying for that left back spot now and may not be that assured starter that he once was.
I just want to bring it back. You're talking about Newcastle there. A lot of people seem to be avoiding Callum Wilson. One, that we've tipped as somebody that could be overlooked, a massive differential, only 3% own. But the question marks are always over his fitness. So do you want to kind of maybe address that sort of situation? Because coming into the season, there's a few players, the likes of Mikel Antonio, Wilson, who seem to be perennially injured, but they're not injured at the moment. So should people be forecasting and being worried that they might get injured, or is that the wrong way to play, too conservative, and maybe get them in whilst they're fit, whilst they're good?
Exactly that, Jason. While they're fresh, firing to go, champing at the bit. Obviously I'm in and around Newcastle at the moment. I'm feeling the energy from the city, the excitement, the possibility, the potential, the crowds. The mood has lifted. It's been night and day between what we were experiencing with Mike Ashley. Everybody's behind Eddie Howe. So why wouldn't you want to jump on Callum Wilson? We've seen what he can do in poor teams, in teams that have struggled, Newcastle, Bournemouth, and even when he's coming back from injury and he's not maybe back up to 100%, he still gets on. He's a player that knows where the onion bag is. He knows where to score, and if you can get Wilson in a team that's on the up with some really good support players in and around him, San Maxim, Guimaraes, Almiron, who's been on fire, Willock, and you've got that momentum, then for what is it, 7.5 million, why wouldn't you want to jump on him? To me, it's an absolute steal. The official FPL account put something out today and give me a bold statement ahead of the season. And my bold statement, and I mean, a lot of people, maybe miss, the tongue-in-cheek element of, but it's a bold statement. And my bold statement ahead of this season was Callum Wilson to outscore Erling Haaland.
Oh, geez, that is massive stuff there. I mean, I hope it comes off. You do sometimes have psychic moments, Ben. So that'll be a fantastic one, and obviously a massive boon for the Toon, wouldn't it? But let's move it to tonight's game then. Is there any kind of breaking injury news that people need to be aware of? So obviously Crystal Palace hosting my boys Arsenal. That's why I've got my shirt on tonight. But yeah, is there anything that people need to be aware of?
Yeah, we heard from Mikel Arteta a couple of times this week. At the beginning, he was suggesting that he could have a full complement of players available for tonight's game. Although the reality with Tomiyasu, Fabio Vieira, Emil Smith-Rowe, they may be injury-free, but certainly not 100% match fit and ready to play, like Kieran Tierney as well. Now, when we had the Arsenal press conference on Thursday morning, he spoke about, 3 of those 4 players will hopefully be involved. They had a session planned for Thursday afternoon. Now, I was fully aware of the fact that Emil Smith-Rowe looks like he won't rejoin the group properly until next week. So that almost certainly rules him out of contention. And I also understand that Fabio Vieira may not be with the squad tonight either. So it looks as though maybe Kieran Tierney and Tomiyasu could potentially be within the group. They're there or thereabouts, but like I say, they're unlikely to have any kind of major involvement, given the fact that, certainly Tomiyasu's been out since the back end of last season with that hamstring problem.
Now, I just want to bring it onto maybe housekeeping or things to do with that, with teams going through the season. Now, obviously, we're doing our kind of deadline stream here. We're going right up to the edge. And this is what we usually do each game week. I think game week 1 is a little bit different because usually there is a server crash just before the game starts as people kind of frantically get in their teams just because they want to, compete against their buddies and stuff. But do you want to explain to people why, we beat the drum every year, every game week? We say leave it to the last minute. Obviously, join us on stream so that you do have that up to the last minute injury news, because sometimes real shocks do happen in the last few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're getting news filtered through all times. Players are training, even now, even for ahead of tomorrow's game, there may be sessions going on. And certainly those teams who are involved in games on Sunday will still have sessions remaining. So to me, why wouldn't you want to decide on your starting 11, on your squad, on your incoming transfers with all of the information to hand? Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark. Now, I understand people want to play the game in different ways, and maybe playing the games like this, there are, occasions where you miss out on players because of price rises, but of the course of the season, that evens itself out. What I'd much rather have is maybe lose a 0.1 in value every now and again, but ensure that, inherently more often than not, those players are going to be fit and available to start, as opposed to maybe, bringing somebody in and wasting a transfer, and it's going to cost us maybe, a -4 to get them out and replace them with somebody else.
Now, we've got a few more questions coming in. People have sent them in. And just to kind of say to people, some have joined us a little bit late and are asking about the Tottenham assets. So rewind to near the start. That was our second topic, the Tottenham fullbacks and that situation there. But Nate has asked a question. With Jimenez out for Wolves, does Hwang get into the front three, or is it Neto, Podence and Morgan Gibbs White? Just before you answer that, Ben, I would say I would avoid any sort of Wolves attacking asset. They were bottom 3, bottom 2, kind of relegation level data for so much last season. They were really, really poor. And so I don't understand the appeal on their assets. They're really not, unless they do something absolutely magnificent, which I'm not sure Bruno Lage will. It's the type of tactics he deploys. Yeah, I don't see it really turning around. But what is your opinion on that then, in terms of maybe purely from the starting? Will Hwang be in there?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, I'm with you, Jason, anyway, with regards to Bruno Lage. I was very disappointed last season. I expected Wolves to almost drag themselves out of that malaise that had came about under Nuno Espirito Santo. That didn't quite happen. And it's a difficult one because Hwang has actually only just returned from a hamstring problem. So again, he's a player who hasn't had a lot of minutes during this pre-season program. So having a look at how Wolves could potentially set up, I have them in Podence and in that advanced role. Of course, Fabio Silva, he's went out on loan. I think it was Anderlecht off the top of my head. And then sitting in behind him, we have Neto. I have Gibbs White in there as well. I'm hoping that this Nottingham Forest interest reportedly up to around, was it 30 million, 35 million, hasn't took his eye off the ball. And I've actually put in Den Donker to sit in behind slightly in that advanced role compared to where, we normally are associate him with. So that would be my sort of attacking front four. Hwang, yes, when fully fit, but I think maybe this game week just comes a little bit too quickly for Bruno Lage to start him outright.
So we're going to move on to the next listener question. We've got, there's two. It's Penton. So he's asking, is Neto 100% fit, and is he injury prone after his massive injury?
I mean, look, I'll address the injury prone part of the question first, and I think it's really sort of often very unfair, to label players as such. Sometimes players are just a little bit unlucky. It was an unfortunate training ground incident. Football is a contact sport, and whether those injuries occur, during competitive play and matches, or whether they happen, away from, those games on the training pitches, that's just going to happen. And yes, it was a serious injury, and he had a couple of setbacks along the way. And look, he's had a good pre-season under his belt. So we hope, fingers crossed, Pedro Neto puts himself in a great position to be able to start the season well. And only time will tell if he'll be to deliver. I think there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders to deliver, like I say, especially with maybe Raul Jimenez out of the team. So, and there's certainly within the fantasy community, he's been attracting a lot of interest. So there will be a lot of gaze and eyes hoping that he can produce. But for me, like I say, I'm not really sold on that Wolves team at this moment in time.
Will Suter has asked any 5.5 gems. So I'm guessing that's midfielders and possibly a striker. I'm going to put one in before you, Ben. I'll give you a bit of time to think about which one, because you did have a few in your team or considerations. But in terms of it, for me, one that I'm waiting on, so I haven't got him in my team yet, but potentially Undav from Brighton. Brighton massively underperformed on their XG data last season, about 12 goals. Undav has done well, kind of working his way up through all different leagues, and he's relatively good. He kind of matches / slightly overperforms XG, quite a good shot on target rate, goal conversion rate. So if he can come into the Brighton team and put away those high quality chances, he's also was good at penalties at his last club. If he's on them for Brighton, he could be fantastic 5.5 own. But it's if he plays in that team, and I'm not so sure on that. I mean, I don't know if you can answer that question, Ben, as well as are there any 5.5s?
Well, I'll stick with 5.5s because as you were talking about Undav, who I've actually got Danny Welbeck to start this week. So I think Undav may be a player that's slowly integrated within Graham Potter's starting 11. So I certainly don't see him thrust in immediately, from the start this weekend. But in terms of 5.5, I've got a few because I had them a lot of those in the midfield and in my draft team earlier in the week. A couple of changes as well that I've made since then. But Christian Norgard, I really do like the Brentford midfielder. If he plays in that advanced role in a 4-3-3, maybe taking over the mantle of Christian Eriksen, I really do like him. Now, Brian Mbeumo's been reclassified as a forward, so sitting second in terms of overall points for midfielders last season for the Bees was Christian Norgard. So I like him. He's in my team. A player that I did get rid of, but I did tip up, particularly in the absence of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, is Dele Alli. He could play in an advanced role, and certainly Frank Lampard has suggested that Dele Alli is one of those options. Of course, Richarlison's now gone and Rondon is suspended for game week 1. The only thing that really puts me off is that he's been pretty diabolical for the last couple of years and not great. And one totally speculative put, got no real idea about the player. It's just what I've read on the forums and I've seen his goal in pre-season, is Southampton midfielder Aribo at 5.5 million. I mean, he scored a great goal, fantastic. The Rangers supporters were eulogizing about him. They think he's going to be moving on to bigger and better things. So if you're looking for a real speculative punt, then he could be your man.
So we got quite a few questions here. Loving it, everybody. This is what we love doing, especially towards deadline. Keep them coming in because obviously it's coming very close to the mark. So we've got AK. He's asked Patterson or Nico Williams, assuming I plan to rotate with Trippier.
I mean, Patterson should get the nod in game week 1, but Seamus Coleman is on the cusp of a return. He will be building fitness with the under 21s. So I think, Patterson. Go on. I'll tip the nod in Patterson's favour, though I'm not really sold on both players.
I just have a feeling that Nottingham Forest are going to be all right. They might not keep a lot of clean sheets, but I think they'll stay up. They could possibly stay up, and Everton might be the ones to go down. I don't know if that's a bit too speculative there.
Look, like I say, I'm not really sold on either player. But look, Patterson, he was very unfortunate last season with injuries. There's an opportunity for him to come down, and particularly while Seamus Coleman's getting him back up to fitness. Look, if he can go out and prove himself and earn that shirt, it's going to be one of he's had limited minutes, since his arrival at Goodison Park. So I wish the lad well, and I hope he does it for, Frank Lampard's team.
So let's move on to more questions. Carlos Munoz has asked, how bad is Wilson's injury? Thank you, you're the best. Greetings from Chile. So yes.
Harry Wilson, we presume.
Yes,
in terms of mechanism, we have no video footage. All we know is that Harry Wilson is seeing a specialist for a second opinion. He will be out for a minimum of 8 weeks, and Marco Silva isn't expecting a return within that 2 month timeline. I've seen other reports and suggestion that could be potentially extended maybe up to 12, possibly 14 weeks. So again, not a player that we would be considering, and it may be after, the World Cup. Of course, that cut-off is around sort of mid-November. So it may be after the World Cup before we see certainly Harry Wilson back to anywhere near those sort of pre-injury levels.
Yeah, and it's a big loss for Fulham as well. He was on their set pieces, which, that they were quite good at in the Championship last season. It's going to be a massive loss, one of those kind of marginal gains that really you can't replicate. So Mohammed has asked, he said, you're my favourite YouTube channel. Lovely to hear that, Mohammed. And good luck with Game Week 1. Chris has asked us both, Chris Gascoigne, he said, if you only had one playing forward in your team, which one would you choose? I think that's a fantastic question. Who would it be, Ben?
Well, look, I'm not getting sucked into the Gabriel Jesus debate. And let's stay away from the obvious Harry Kane and Haaland, because they're two world-class strikers, and of course they should be in your team. If I was going to go one, you know what? I'm going to stick my guns. I'm going to say Callum Wilson, just because I want to be different, because he's a local lad, and because we're going to be pushing for Europe this season.
I think, I've got both of them in my team. You've already mentioned him, so I'll give another one. Ivan Toney. So I think we'll see what Brentford do, but potentially they could play really well. I think they're going to switch to a 4-3-3. You look at the players that they brought in and how well they played in that 4-3-3 system. And as you said, that could benefit Norgard as well. But maybe if we're talking about longevity here, Ivan Toney's got a really good injury record. He's on penalties. He normally stays quite fit. Wilson probably has a higher ceiling in those first few matches. But if we're talking about season long, in terms of Chris's question, then I'd lean just towards Toney because he might stay fitter for longer. But I do love the Callum Wilson pick as well. It's a really, really difficult one. But I love that question there from Chris. Let's move it on to Tottenham Arb's question. He said, what do you think about Edouard 5.5 as an upset tonight at home versus Arsenal?
Do you know what? This is how busy I've actually been and rushing around. For some reason, I'm running a last man standing competition. If you don't know, you pick a team. If you win, you go through. If they draw or lose, you're out. I've went for Arsenal. I was convinced myself that the game was happening at the Emirates. Then I just felt when to come on the stream and Jason mentioned at Selhurst Park. And you know what? Now I'm worried because
no.
That home crowd, look, they haven't had a great preseason program. The squad was split. But, when they've got the likes of the Zahas in there, the Yezes, players who can create, players that can individually cause massive problems. And Edouard, he looks to be Patrick Vieira's first choice. So, you know what, as a long-term punt across the season, I think that would be all right. But let's not forget that Palace have lost a few key players in there as well. Michael Elise, he's still injured. The guys went back to Chelsea. Totally slipped my mind. Midfielder, player of the year last season. Cannot remember his name for the life of me. But that will impact on the Eagles as well. So I do like Edouard pick. I'm just hoping that the Gunners go out and do it for me tonight.
So we got about 1 minute to go here, people. Really, really exciting. We got Tex. He's asked, Trippier and Callum Wilson fit 100%, Ben?
Yeah, look, I mean, as fit as he can possibly get. They both had great pre-seasons, being managed very carefully by Eddie Howe. So again, no lasting or lingering doubts from those, sort of calf-related and metatarsal issues that hampered them last season.
Okay, well, I guess we'll round up the stream then. I've asked everybody in the stream who their captain is. We've got one saying Heung-min Son. We've got Mohammed saying Mo Salah. Ben, who's your captain?
My captain this week, Jason put us on the spot. I think I've went Harry Kane.
Oh, lovely.
I wasn't sure if I went Callum Wilson. I went Callum Wilson as my vice and Harry Kane with the armband.
Mo Salah for me. So yeah, I think that is basically... Oh, okay, Mohammed, you're going to get the last question in here. Robbo or Diaz? Who would you go for, Ben?
Robbo. Liverpool just look a little bit sharper. I think I'm expecting City to start a little bit slower. And Robbo has got a little bit of a higher ceiling. I think he offers more of a threat going forward.
So I think we've gone over the time here. Wing L has asked the question, Walker for Perisic, is that okay then? I hope, well, I mean, you can answer that, Ben, but I don't know if it's too late now. I'll check the website as you answer.
Yeah, we're gone. It's definitely gone. I mean, would I have went? Look, if I had me heart set on Perisic, which a lot in the community seem to have had up to this point, then nothing that I would have heard in the last day or two would have talked me off at Perisic, because I would have went into this game on the understanding that, look, he will get minutes, but those may be limited or restricted. And therefore, if I'm on him, I'm staying on him. I'm not a big fan of Walker either, but maybe if you're looking for somebody who's going to get that 90-odd minutes, then Walker, and you could maybe do him the first couple of game weeks and then switch to Perisic maybe from game week 3 or 4 onwards.
Well, there you go. And I think that's the end of the stream, everybody. Good luck for game week 1. I hope that we've helped you in your kind of last few minutes there. It's always hectic on the deadline. But as always, just to remind everybody, stay subscribed to the channel. Make sure to check out Ben's Twitter, my Twitter, and ask us questions through the week. But we'll be doing these all through the season. Those deadline streams. We'll also be doing our regular through the week injury updates, essential for if you want to avoid any heartache in Fantasy Premier League, or if you're betting, or if you're doing fan team. However you interact with the Premier League, we're always here to solve your problems. But yeah, I guess it's going to be a goodbye from us, eh, Ben?
It certainly is, Jason. And come on, you Gunners!
Yes. Great way